Should they be 3 or 4 of them so that they can spread out the risk? Because if they will insist on operating on their own without looking at their option, they kawawa naman yung tao nila, no? Kawawa din sila because, they're one-track mind. They don't want to change. No? I think it's important that, everybody will have to understand that, the new normal change is inevitable and you have to consider part of the option. The difference is there was no lockdown before. 1997, for the benefit of the young people, there's an Asian economic financial crisis that happened Asia-wide. No? 2008, it was a worldwide crisis, started in the US because of the subprime loan. No? Either way, the world got hit. No? But, I reflecting on 1997, 1998, I had a good year that year. No? So, and then the year 2008, I also had a good year that year in spite of the crisis. So I don't want people to think that it's going to be a bad year after the coronavirus. I think what's important is for people to start, to adapt. No? And in the case of, the adoption process that we did, we sold a lot more. Let's say in the case of one of my businesses, Water Purifier, Waters Philippines, we sold a lot more on installment instead of insisting that we should sell on cash basis.
Okay, guys, we're in for a very, very special treat today. We have the chairman of Mansmith Filters and one of the greatest marketing minds in the country, one of the greatest minds in this generation also. He's written more than 18 books about marketing and entrepreneurship, and it's it's an honor for you to be here. Without much ado, Josiah Go. Hello.
Arvin, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Excited that you're part of the vlog.
Thank you. Finally, you invited me. Akala ko, iniisip mo ako eh.
No. It's actually nice also now because of the lockdown, everyone is free. Everyone, it's easier to, I guess, make schedules meet because everyone's at home also.
Okay, thank you for inviting. I feel very honored that you have invited me to be your guest.
So, how's everything naman? How's the family? Everything's good?
So far, so good. I think I praise God for taking care of my family.
I'll get into the thick of things now because a lot of entrepreneurs right now are a bit scared because this is something that's also unprecedented. A lot of people did not, I guess, project this. This was not part of any forecasting for 2020. Since we are on a lockdown, a lot of the retail establishments are closed. A lot of anything service-oriented that's not really essential are also closed as well. For companies that have zero sales, their sales are down, what should they do? What's your advice for this entrepreneur, especially the SMEs?
Well, the first thing is that that is called the law of double jeopardy. And and I share it with my entrepreneurial participants. Normally, it refers to startup companies where they have to sell at a lower price, introductory price, because they are not known, no? And then their costs are typically higher because they still don't have economies of scale. And so can you imagine lower price and then higher cost? You're gonna have lower margins, lower profit. But the double jeopardy now is even worse because you have zero revenue, but your cost continues. No? I mean, you still have to pay your people, you still have to pay your rent. Of course, you can tell your people to charge it to leads, no? Posible, and as government mandated. But ultimately, what if you run out of, options, no? So what you need to do is to look at your business model. I think it's important to understand from a marketing perspective, marketing should not just be limited to understanding marketing. They should understand business model. And it has really two parts, no? The offering model and the operating model. More than anything else is to first look at the offering model. Two important issues. The first issue is that what's the value proposition that you are actually offering? Are you offering an essential product or a non-essential product? So if you're offering a non-essential product, maybe you have to start thinking about adding an essential product to your portfolio, no? Or be ready for the next crisis. Part of crisis preparedness. The second thing is really your channel. So many things have changed. The key factor for success in the past may no longer be valid in the future. For example, if somebody has 500 stores in malls, but the malls are closed. So at the end of the day, you can be market leader with 500 stores, but without any stores operating, they're no longer your key factor for success. So that has to be really evaluated. No? And therefore, the first question, one of the very first questions that business people will have to ask is, am I investing in cost that doesn't really add value? Because in the past, they might think that they're investing because it adds value. But, this crisis taught us so many things, that they have invested in cost that, but they're not actually adding value in times of crisis. Very important point. The second thing that they need to evaluate their business model is their value chain, which is who is supplying what's the sequence of activities, what are, how are activities sequence, no? So, and the idea is that you need to ensure supply. You don't want to have a supply risk. Many companies, they can operate, but they don't have supply. You go to the supermarket, there are products that are out of stocks. So, is it possible that companies were over-reliant on just one country, over-reliant on just one supplier, over-reliant on maybe, wanting to maximize the volume discount? Or is the business model better that they spread out to 2 or 3 different suppliers? The cost maybe is just a little bit higher, but they're assured of supply. These are some of the key issues in the business model that the businessman will have to involve in. There are, of course, so many other issues that you have. There are 11 building blocks in the business model, and entrepreneurs will have to understand those things.
Can I ask a follow up on that?
Sure.
While everything is closed, and they have payroll also that they need to consider. In your experience, how should they manage that as well? Because one person there also represents a family.
Well, number one is that I think they have to be realistic. No? One of the issues there for payroll is that if the employees they have leaves, it can be charged to the leaves. No? The second thing is that the entrepreneurs would have to have a reality check in terms of how they operate. Like, for example, I hear many people operate on their own. So should they be looking for a business partner at this point in time? Should they be 3 or 4 of them so that they can spread out the risk? Because if they will insist on operating on their own, without looking at their option, they kawawa naman yung tao nila, no? Kawawa din sila because, they're one track mind. They don't want to change. No? I think it's important that, everybody will have to understand that, the new normal change is inevitable and you have to consider part of the option.
Wow.
It's a good thing that the government is going to subsidize people who are not able to work, no? But it can only go so far. No? Hopefully, with additional funding from Duterte's $5 billion economic stimulus, hopefully more than 5,000 pesos can be given to people as assistance.
Wow, that's so interesting. No? And I guess one of the key things that entrepreneurs must do is they must learn how to innovate also to what's happening. And
to consider options, to be open-minded.
Okay, amazing. Second question is, you've seen different crises from the 1997 Asian financial crisis, then we saw the financial crash in 2008, then to where we are now. How different is this from the previous crashes, recessions? And we don't know kasi how long this will last. If this should drag on, what should entrepreneurs do?
Well, very interesting question. The difference is there was no lockdown before. 1997, for the benefit of the young people, there's an Asian economic financial crisis that happened Asia-wide. No, 2008, it was a worldwide crisis. Started in the U.S. because of the subprime loan. No, either way, the world got hit. No, but you know, I reflecting on 1997, 1998. I had a good year that year, no? So, and then the year 2008, I also had a good year that year in spite of the crisis. So I don't want people to think that it's going to be a bad year after the coronavirus. I think what's important is for people to start, to adapt, no? And in the case of, the adoption process that we did, we sold a lot more. Let's say in the case of one of my businesses, Water Purifier, Waters Philippines, we sold a lot more on installment instead of insisting that we should sell on cash basis. No? And so because we adjusted, the business was good. No? In the case of 2008, it's the same thing. Ganon din, no? Business will have to adjust. No? If they insist the way to do business is only one way, then I think they have to think again because their competitor is going to, clobber them alive, and they have to find ways in terms of what the customer wants. No? In the first place, the consumer purchasing power would be softer this year, so they have to find ways in terms of how they can actually help the consumers buy their products. No?
I like what you said that even in times of crisis in 97 and 2008, you had a good year. That's why you're so good there. That's why you know how to pivot and do things. That's why you really need to survive this.
No, I'm just trying to inspire people and say, hey, it's not all bad.
Yeah, wow. That's why people need to hear messages like this. Third question, and I just want to be as real as possible that based on what's happening, I'm not so sure if all of the businesses will survive. There might be some that they may have to close down. I've been getting messages pa nga from some entrepreneurs saying that if this lockdown drags on for 3 months, I don't have enough cash to make this work. My question is this: if it were you and then you would lose everything from this, how would you build everything and how would you actually start?
Well, first is that the first thing is I won't even think about a new business. No, I will have the proper closure. You'll have to talk to your people. You have to talk to your partners, and you have to talk to your stakeholders why you have to close. No, I think to have a proper closure is important. You cannot just abandon people and say, "Hey, goodbye." That's number one. Number two is that. The entrepreneur needs to take care of their mental health and well-being. No? And do understand this is fortuitous event. They don't have to feel bad that their business did not do well at this point in time. And the reason is this is, it's a pandemic, that happened to affect their business. And it so happened that their business got caught. No? So they should not be blaming everything to themselves. No? They have to be kinder to themselves. No? The third thing is I'd like to think that if a person would like to go into a business, I would recommend that they have business partners at this point in time, not to just do it alone. I think they try doing it alone and then they realize that of course when they're alone they make all the money, but if at the same time if you lose all the money too. No? So get business partners and find opportunities together. Now, the fourth thing is, as far as the opportunities, various opportunities are concerned, I look at industries with a lot of pain points. No? So, for example, people are wearing face masks. And one of the things that we have to ask ourselves is that after the COVID, will people continue to wear face masks? And I'd like to believe that a lot of people will continue to wear face masks. And you know, as you know, face mask is important. No, there are some local companies, they try to do it. They do it manually. They don't have machines, so the productivity is really awful. No, so they have to start thinking about, you know, trends. What will happen to the industry? What will continue after COVID? What will stop? What are new things that is going to happen? And you know, I tell you, the future is happening elsewhere. China and Korea, they're practically much better off in their coronavirus. So you might want to take a look at their classified ads. Which industry, you know, which industries are hiring, and what are they hiring? It's giving you a semblance of where are the opportunities. Like pharmaceutical, healthcare will continue to hire, and so these are some of the opportunities that you can pick up. You know, just look at the internet and search. No, many people don't look at classified ads, but they might want to start looking at classified ads and be very practical in terms of searching for information.
Wow, that's amazing. That's the first time I've heard that you can find business opportunities just by look at the hiring. That's so out of the box. Galing.
Why not?
Yeah.
And it doesn't cost. It does not cost anything. You know? So you have to, instead of hiring a research company. Of course, my research company's friends will. They're going to kill me for saying this, but you have to be very pragmatic.
And I guess I think one thing that will progress even further is you will see more and more companies align into something that's more digital. Working digital, there will be more online meetings like this, and then digital money, I guess, will be more profound in the next few years also.
I believe so. You know, in 2003, when SARS happened, that was the fantastic growth of digitalization in China. Remember that Alibaba and JD.com, they were born at that time, no? And there were massive, you know, adoption during that time because they had no choice. They had to do online, no? And they were at the right place at the right time. So who is going to be the Alibaba of the Philippines? So that's going to be the next big opportunity.
Wow. Thank you for saying that. And I hope it becomes a challenge also for more entrepreneurs to try to do something technology related as well. And with that note,
sure. I think they should consider that.
Yeah.
Investing more in technology and IT and
Agree. Super agree. And since we have one of the best marketing minds na rin, I'll take this opportunity. What are your tips for people who would want to market in 2020? Since you're the best. I consider you one of the best. You're the best. Kumbaga, in basketball, you're Michael Jordan. No one will. It's hard for other people to copy you.
So your question is what tips on how? What's your question again?
How can people market, or how can entrepreneurs market in this for this year? Any tips for them?
Okay. So one of the things that people say, what products do I want to carry, and who's my target market? But I will tell them the very first thing that they have to take into consideration. There are two things that they have to take into consideration in preparation of the next crisis, and hopefully there's no next crisis. Number one is really about a personal branding, and number two is about having a network. So let me just expand that a little bit. You have personal branding. What do you represent? No, you know, I've seen many people tackling different issues. I'm very focused in marketing. That's about it. And you know, the core and adjacency next to marketing is really innovation and entrepreneurship. So I'm, you know, in that sphere. No, I don't want to go outside of that. So be focus on a narrow target and be very good at what you're doing. The second thing is really about having a network. The best network is when you don't need them yet. No? So you need to be, you know, present in, and you'd have to be known for the right reason. No? You need to have mentors who can help you. Mentors who can help you operationally, functionally, personally, and in fact, even strategically in terms of long term, what you want to be. And these are two different things that many people don't consider. They just keep on thinking about products and market. But if you're an entrepreneur, you have to start thinking beyond product and market, but think about yourself and your network.
I like what you said that when you have a network, you have to have them when you don't need them yet. So I guess
Yes,
the
of course.
relationships also get developed before para they don't think na lalapitan mo na ako kasi you need something from me as well.
Parang user, no? I think it's important to be able to invest, to keep in touch, to invest in those relationships.
I have a question regarding marketing. For example, how has the times changed for you? For example, you would market a cupcake in 1990 versus marketing it in 2020. What would be the difference in your style for today versus 30 years ago?
Well, I really focus on what's the opportunity at that point in time. And the way I market products or services is to always look at the consumer, start with the consumer or the non-consumer. It depends on who you're targeting. If you're targeting the consumers, you're basically doing brand switching. If you're targeting the non-consumer, you're marketing a new category. Then I look at the pain points. For customers, what are their pain points in patronizing a product or service? For non-customers, why are they not patronizing a particular product category? I'll first understand, that would be my methodology.
Wow.
Before I even come up with a marketing strategy. You cannot come up with a market. There's a prerequisite. The prerequisite of marketing strategy is value proposition. The prerequisite of value proposition is understanding and solving pain points. Unfortunately, you cannot jump and take step 3 and say, here's my marketing strategy without understanding the 2 other steps.
Amazing. Got it. As an entrepreneur, being in business for a very, very long time, what was the greatest risk that you ever took? And did it ever pay off? Or when you took the risk, did it not go the way you wanted it to go?
For those who are experiencing problem, and I want to this is the first time I'm going to talk about publicly. I share in some of my seminars, but I never talk about this publicly. There was a time in my life, in my entrepreneurial life, where I could not collect 50 million pesos in receivables. And I, can you imagine if you could have collected 50 million, and this was, 15, 20 years ago. But I survived, and you just have to take care of yourself and always have reality check. And I was able to recover, through other ways. I was not able to recover the receivables, but I was able to recover through other ways. So there's, there's light at the end of the tunnel, Marvin, and it's not a train coming towards you.
Okay. What was the biggest thing that you got from that? That this is a large amount of receivables that I did not get. How did you change the way you did your business after?
I accelerated more. I pressed on the gas pedal, and there's a reason why. I was selling different things on installment, and my cash price and installment pricing would be different. And fortunate enough, my installment pricing is different. It's a bit higher than cash, and that shielded me. And then I realized, then I can make it into a business model, and it's not realistic for me to think about I can collect 100%. Because when I look at consumer financing, the data from consumer financing, credit card, etc., there's no company doing 100%. So what I did was just said, maybe there is an opportunity here. So I just stepped on the gas and accelerated and never looked back. And it turned out that the business model, selling on installment, taking a little bit risk, is good. And you just need to be realistic that you cannot collect from everyone, but you still have to be careful who you give credit to.
I have a question. I did a lot of videos prior to this, and a lot of the entrepreneurs, sila, on this time of crisis, they're on offense, not on defense. Are you the same? Are you trying to push it for? You said stepping on the gas pedal. Are you more aggressive now, or are you also a bit more cautious right now?
There's a difference between 1997 2008 because there's a lockdown. So my mandate is safety first. No?
Mm.
I don't want my people to be taking so much risk. No?
Mm.
And even my HR, I was talking to my HR that says, statistics is telling us, and you have to be database. Statistics is telling us that the people who are getting hit are people who graduated from the class of 1970s and the class of 1980s. No? And unfortunately, these are people who are in their 60s, 70s, even in their 50s. No?
Mm.
But, younger people are not being affected. No? So even in terms of who can work, who cannot work, I think it's important for companies to start thinking about people in their 20s and 30s seems to have a better immune system, no? Versus the older people. But certainly we changed. We had to tell our distributor, instead of doing face-to-face meeting, to do using social messaging app and using the social media. And I had to show them that I actually did it, and we were able to sell simply on the basis of social messaging app. So we had to change the messaging too, catering to the pain points. I'll give you a specific example, Marvin. So in the case of water purifier, the pain points before used to be price, because if a household would spend 150 pesos a week, it's not much. But if you multiply it by monthly, that's 600 pesos a month, 7,000 pesos a year. Lifetime, that's 500,000 pesos in terms of a lifetime expenditure for water. Number two is that most of the water from water refill station is really acidic. People don't know that. No? So these are pain points before, and up to now it could be pain point, but the pain points have changed. And the reason is social distancing is an issue. They don't want, they also don't want to pick up gallons and gallons because they're quite heavy. No? Kasi before, the water refill station can deliver. Now they don't want to deliver. In subdivisions, they only deliver up to the gate and then you pick it up. No? So there's a lot of hassle there. No? And then in terms of crisis preparedness, the message for crisis preparedness is now resonating with some household who were caught without any spare water. And I understand, one of my former students reported that in some places, water refill stations are now rationing 2 bottles per person. No? And, it's kind of hassle to some families. So they said, I think we're better off to just own a water purifier. The messaging is different. The pain points are different. It's the same product. You just have to be sensitive to consumer, how they feel about a particular situation.
Wow. I didn't know that those things are happening right now. That they're even rationing water also. But yeah, times.
No, they're allocating. They're not rationing. They're allocating.
Okay.
But this information was told to me even before in the province. Let's say every time there's a typhoon and there's brownout, the water refill station, unfortunately, is run by electricity. No? And if you don't have electricity or you don't have enough system of producing water other than electricity, the consumer will have to suffer. And, and some people have tendency to hoard. No? So in order to please all their customers, they start rationing and allocating product. It's happening again in some areas, I understand. So we've been warned about this, and we've been telling our customers to be prepared in a crisis situation. The future, Marvin, is happening elsewhere. It's kind of easy to predict by simply observing what's happening in other places.
Wow. Thank you for that. So if you guys are learning, comment below. If you have other questions as well, comment them, and then we'll try to see how we can make videos off of that. My next question is this, and it's not just me, but a lot of people see you as as someone who's super, super, super successful. What's your secret sauce on
Hindi naman.
successful?
Well, uh, I maybe I should not say I'm super successful. No? I think I'm successful in my career. I don't want to say I'm because it's kind of relative. There are so many definitions of what is success. No? And I personally think when you start thinking about you're successful, that would be the end of you. So it's always a journey. No? Having said that, I want to tell you that my father was not a rich person. He was poor. In fact, he was a market vendor at one point in time when he was young. He went into sales, became middle class. No, so it was very conscious of me when I was young that I would not have the financial capital using the traditional way. No, I mean, I will have to find other ways. So I realized that one of the ways for me to have financial capital is to have to be intellect is to invest in intellectual capital, no? And use the intellectual capital to financial capital, and but I cannot be kalap. I cannot be everywhere. I have to focus and really dig deeper, no? And so that's where I decided to focus in marketing, understand what marketing is all about. So can you imagine, Marvin, and Mansmith and Fielders? We have 70 courses in marketing.
Oh,
Our understanding of marketing is so deep that even marketing strategy, we have defensive marketing, we have growth strategy, we have market driving strategy, selling to new customers, we have competitive marketing, we have different types of marketing. And in fact, there's 8 or 9 of us doing the training and consulting now. We become specialists in our field. And if other people were to follow what we have done, I think one is really to understand the importance of focus. You have to focus. The focus allows you to be a specialist. Don't be a generalist. Be a specialist first. And number 3 is once you become focused in something, then dig deeper and try to expand your knowledge. In our case, 30 years ago, Mansmith is celebrating our 30th anniversary.
wow! Congratulations.
Thank you. We only had 1 or 2 seminars, marketing strategy and plans. We spin it off. We launched fundamentals of marketing. We launched trade marketing. We launched strategic marketing, 24 MBA analytical tools, and trade marketing. We launched sales promotions, and so forth and so on. Always everything is a stepping stone for the future. No? And what we have discovered is core to adjacency. And when you keep on expanding and you now have, let's say, 20 different adjacencies you can tap to, but the reality is that 20 is now your core. And it's easier to start expanding. And that's what I'd recommend people to do. Focus and then expand based on your focus.
Super agree with that you have to focus and double down on one thing. You have to be deep. I think in this era it's all about going deep, not wide. And totoo, whenever they say marketing, it's always you eh.
Hindi naman, marami naman mga nasa marketing din, no? Siguro maingay lang ako.
And there's one thing, nagulat ako doon na you said 30 years na kayo and you're 40 years old, so you started at 10 years old. Ang galing.
I'm 57. I started pretty young. When nobody was, nobody was able to identify the opportunities. Now, Waters is also close to 30 years. So I like industries where I don't like brand switching. I'd like to start a new category, less competition, but you have to be more hardworking because you have to educate the market. No? I like industries like that.
Wow. You mentioned that you're 57. A lot of people prepare for retirement for 60, 65. And this channel, we always talk about investing for financial freedom. So for a broad amount of people that are wanting to be financially free, I guess two questions from that. What's your concept of financial freedom, and any tips for people who want to hit that as well?
My concept of financial freedom, I'm gonna joke about it. No? And financial freedom is whatever your wife wants to spend, you can afford it.
No, Delica, that's very, very scary. That's very scary.
So does it pass your standard in terms of financial freedom?
I'll take it a notch higher. Pa. For me, it's not just your whatever your wife wants. It's also whatever your mother-in-law wants as well. Because that's what makes it, makes it full circle also.
So you're very generous. Congratulations, Marvin.
I've realized, because I've been saying this all the time, I'm not handsome, so I must compensate somewhere. I must compensate somewhere else. So, do you have any tips? Anything the way how do you or good how do you, is there any strategy on how you save, or are you frugal, or are you very good in your budgeting? Something.
I I don't really spend a lot on myself. I like to treat my friends. No? I like to treat my families. So I find happiness in making other people happy. But I don't actually spend. I buy clothes on sale, and in general, once in a while I go to have a custom shirt made. And I had a little more made recently because we had a project that requires me to have more shirt. No? But in general, I don't really spend a lot for myself. No? I think it's important that people will have to understand that. In fact, years and years ago, when I was starting to make money, I had a Rolex watch. I've not used my Rolex watch, and my wife has not used her Rolex watch for over a decade, no? Because
Oh.
you don't, and so we just keep it, no? Because we just want to have a simple lifestyle, and the last watch I was using was less than 1,000 pesos. It tells the time anyway, no? And mobile phone can also tell you the time, no? But of course, my wife gave me an Apple Watch, so who am I to say no to a nice gift?
but the Apple Watch is so interesting. At the start, also, I didn't think it was something that was useful, but there's so many things you can do with it, especially if you're using an iPhone. There's so I think it can be synced for so many ways as well.
That's true. I really think that the wearables, that's really the future. No? In fact, at one point in time, you don't even need a mobile phone. It's gonna be in your watch.
And there's technologies now that they're trying to develop. You're gonna have lenses already connected to be able to browse.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
Before I go to my last question, I remember this. You said that whatever your wife wants to buy, this lockdown's actually scarier because my wife is in online platforms shopping, so she has a lot of time to shop as well. So it became, people say stay at home so you don't spend, but sometimes when you're at home you get to spend more na rin.
But delivery is another issue because I understand the logistics company are delivering the essential products first.
Yeah.
They're prioritizing the essential products.
True.
It's quite fortunate. My wife, is also very thrifty, and also my mentor. No? So she has taught me quite a number of things, and I learn a lot from her.
Maybe I could let your wife mentor my wife for future reasons. But but my last question is this: since you mentioned we were talking about the crisis from the start of this video, there are a lot of people or entrepreneurs that are fearful. They're panicking because of the uncertainty. There are a lot of people who have not experienced something like this, and there are a lot of people who are downright depressed also. Any words of encouragement for them, for someone who has gone through a lot of these cycles? And also, I like what you said, even on those bad years you were doing so well, and that's something that people I think can get something from.
Yeah, one of the things to get clarity is to take an early morning walk. I would recommend that those people who are panicky take an early morning walk, wear face masks, and and a lot of times after just one walk, I come home with a lot more ideas. No? The second thing is write it down and connect the dots. No? Because you wouldn't know, so you might forget about it and consider your options. No? That's a tip that I'd like to give. And again, all of these tips, it won't cost any money to people. You just need to exert some effort.
Wow, wow. And there's one thing that I like about you. Even though you have done so much already, you still work very, very hard. You spend a lot of time, and you outwork even people who are younger, much younger than you as well.
But that's one of the things that I learned from my wife, Chiki. And she's the one who said, we should be advocacy based. So in the year 2004, actually, she changed Mansmith into an advocacy based company. So all of our books actually are advocacy based. No? So it goes to charity, it goes to, so we work hard not for ourselves. We work hard to help other people. And if we don't work hard, then baka walang pondo to help other people.
Wow.
So I think it's important also do that.
Wow. Prosperity with a purpose. Lastly, before we go, how can people get in touch with you if they'd like to attend the seminars or grab a copy of your book, or at least get your insights as well? Kasi for me, I'm just talking to you right now. I'm not reading a book for the year anymore. Wala na. This is it already.
Well, they can go to josiahgo.com, which is my blog. No? There are over 500 interviews with top executives in the Philippine setting pa, no? And they're all free. There are also articles there. So this is the time to visit and read up. I don't charge anything. There's no fee, and there's no limit too. No, the second thing is I give marketing tips in Twitter. I'm close to 6,000 marketing tips. No, so if they want to read, they just read back. There's so many marketing tips to learn from. No? And then of course I have my Facebook Josiah Go author page, and we can interact there. Mansmith and Fielder is mansmith.net. There are a lot of seminars, but we have to, safety first. We have to reschedule a lot of seminars. There they can see, all of the courses that we offer. The 70 courses, not all of them are offered publicly. Some are just for exclusively for in-house clients.
What's so interesting? I follow your Twitter, no, your marketing tips. Parang a few years ago, sabi ko, parang hindi nauubusan. Every time it's always different. Do you have a goal? Parang, will you make it reach 100,000 or something?
No, but I basically post based on lessons learned for the day. Sometimes there are situations or I encounter a situation and I just process the lesson and say, I want to give marketing. So there are days when I would have 2 or 3 marketing tips. There are days when I would have 0 marketing tips. But, so I try to make it up on other days because I just don't want to put any marketing tip for the sake of just putting any marketing tip.
Wow. Galing. Thank you so much for the time. And to everyone watching this, I hope you guys got a lot from one of the greatest, not just marketing minds, but also entrepreneurial minds in the country. Thank you so much, Josiah Go, for being part of the vlog.
Thank you. Appreciate very much.
And to all of you, I hope this video helps you trade well, trade strong, trade smart. See you all again soon, guys, and God bless you all.